Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Japanese deep dive, and finally happy to talk about both the brand new Radiance releases and Tai Katô alongside that, which is a unknown director to me, a Japanese director, someone who's got a little bit more of a spotlight recently thanks to these really excellent releases from Radiance, which we have the first film there, The Executioner, and the brand new release of 18 Years in Prison, all directed by the same director. And thanks to Johnny at Fanatical Dragon doing his reviews and talking about these films, gives me a little bit of encouragement, a bit of inspired, going like, hey, I want to check out this director, I want to check out those editions as well. I've been very curious about checking out brand new directors, and as you know guys, from doing kind of some of these Japanese drops recently on the channel, I've been really discovering some really interesting films. Some are hit and misses, some are absolutely fantastic, and I'm getting a bit of a sense of a history and culture that I really want to explore, not just within the films themselves and these actors and the directors, but also what these films mean. Very similar to kind of like Hong Kong cinema and having different time periods and how the cultural kind of clashes do happen and what kind of directors are talking about in their themes and their characters and the storylines, while still being entertaining and being outlandish and silly and fun at the same time. Japanese films, from what I've seen so far, a lot more serious, a lot more kind of stoic, a lot angrier, meaner, but also have a lot more heart at the same time. They do a lot more emotional films than people give them credit for. I am glad this lives up to the kind of expectation that's been grounded already, not just been review-based wise and critic-based wise, but also through the fellow community as well alongside it. It's really hit the ground running for me. Really fantastic first entry within the little series of movies I'll be doing over the kind of course of the channel. By A Man's Face You Shall Know Him, a very unique kind of title, apparently based off the real-life Yakuza actor and protagonist in this film, because he has a giant scar on his face. It's very memorable. You're going to know that face. And this is a fantastic Radiance edition release, as you can see there. I'll just show you the artwork. There you go. You get your disc, you get your booklet, which gives a bit more deep dive. Again, this is a limited edition one. You also get the little slip there. You get the poster, and you get the original poster as well. The film's main protagonist and star for this film is Noboru Ando, I hope I'm saying that correctly, which is a big, kind of massive, famous, kind of real-life Yakuza kind of boss, or a street gang, as he's known back in the day, that became an actor after spending, I think, 6 to 8 years in prison, who after prison got approached by a film company and producers to basically star in a series of movies and do tales based on his real life, on his dealings and being this really kind of famous kind of, Yakuza boss and family. Found it after his release in prison, and he was kind of broke and needed to basically work, and this happened to be the source of income and revenue that he could do for quite some time, and ended up becoming one of the most famous and one of the most international, well-regarded kind of actors of, very interesting kind of career this guy has. And thanks to the kind of Radiance release, there is 3 brand new actors on this edition, one being a kind of a deep dive into this actor's, turned Yakuza boss, going to actor essentially, and exploring his films a little bit and talking about him as a real life person and his eventual death much later on, which is very interesting. It gives me a bit more of a deeper insight into this kind of, character, where his character plays on screen versus the person that he was in real life. And it's very interesting to kind of see this kind of trend within, being the kind of the 70s at the times, going from the late 60s going into the early 70s, Yakuza movies were coming quite known, quite highly demanded by the general public. And this was a shift and focus, going from the stoic heroes, as mentioned, within the kind of, bounty hunter movies and some of the ones I've discussed already on the channel with, Tearaway kind of company, shifting their focus and doing more Kenji Fukusaka, more gritty, more kind of, erratic kind of camera work and, grimy and nastier films within the Yakuza movies that were kind of dominating the time. And as mentioned, similar to kind of, Shaw Brothers, there are such a oversaturated market of Yakuza-based kind of films and content. It's very difficult to know which ones are good, which ones are bad, which ones are based on true stories, which ones are kind of made up. And there's just an oversaturated market of these films, and especially for a newcomer like myself who are going into these ones. And he really is fantastic in this film. I previously saw him within the Sympathy for the Underdog, a Kenji Fukusaka film, which I really enjoyed in that. He played a supporting role in that film, which he did a really, really good job. And also, unknowingly, seen a film not too long back called Violent Streets from a Eureka release. I didn't do a review for that one at the time, I just kind of watched it. And Tai Katô does an absolutely phenomenal job in this film. I really enjoyed what this film had to offer and what it had to say. I think the performances, the story, the technical aspects are all really top notch and really kind of ahead of its time for 1960s kind of Yakuza movies. There's a bit more of a vision kind of placed here, a lot more compared to some others that I've seen, where Kenji Fukusaka is very kind of erratic in this, in your face and almost documentary kind of feel, really kind of hand holding that camera, shaky cam kind of style, really kind of get into the face of, of the action. And this film feels a bit more specific and feels a lot more kind of, thematical, and has a lot more of a vision behind the camera with its kind of long takes and kind of profile shots and its color grading and this kind of lighting, the way he wants to kind of showcase a sequence. There's a lot of interesting kind of angles and focus in scenes. There's moments where action is there's moments where fighting is breaking out. You're just focusing on our main protagonist's face and his expression, because we know he can do something, but he chooses not to. And that's interesting. It's a deliberate choice. And that's one of the things I want to say straight away, is that there was a lot of deliberate choices and interesting ideas being presented here. And it's this idea of a traditional kind of, filmmaking style, with the kind of traditional cliches of a Yakuza movie, good guys versus bad guys, the final standoff, one guy going against loads and loads of people, but done in a very untraditional way. From the very get-go, I say straight away. Being the fact this film opens up with a text message basically saying this is a fictional story set post-World War II, and we want to basically do this film to basically highlight and live in a world of peace and harmony and, look after each other. And this is a film effort to try and to say, hey, look, we want to be better kind of thing. But this is a fiction story, an entertaining film, an entertaining piece, while also having a message behind the characters' actions and the relationships that's formed within the film. Very kind of interesting straight off the bat, the fact that it kind of highlights that, the intention, what the director and the producers and what the film's trying to go for straight away without even seeing like a first kind of frame of the film. Very, very noble and very interesting. And being the fact that this is another story that I've seen, interestingly, from watching the Graveyard of Honor movies recently, as well, about a post-World War II kind of world, and this idea of the people, the community, the soldiers turning Yakuza gang members, the kind of racist kind of aspects to the film as well, in terms of, the Koreans coming in, basically strongholding, they having the resources, the money, the power, the people essentially coming into these kind of territories and basically want to control this kind of market, essentially this local kind of town market, and this idea of the economy trying to get back on its feet. There's a lot to play and digest in this film. There's so many aspects and so many things to digest and really play into the film, while also being an entertaining, Yakuza kind of, action film at the same time. It's quite impressive. And one of the things that I really do love about the film is the fact that it plays with kind of narrative structure straight away. The fact that the opening of the film is set within a present day, probably many, many years later. The main character is much older. He's a lot older. He's got like glasses. He's got like this little mustache, and he's just someone who's been through some stuff. We don't know what's happened to him, but we know he's going to survive what happens in the past. Essentially, someone comes through from having a car accident and it ends up being a character that he knew back in the past from an incident that's the film's kind of mainly taking place for. And the film cleverly alternates between the future and the past. The film's bulk of the film is mainly set within the past, but how it transitions and kind of catches up within the present and says bits of specific kind of dialogue and moments. This idea of, the character, the doctor, which is a soldier turned doctor coming back to his hometown. He has land basically and has interest and has a bit of wealth essentially over this market. And the fact that we know what's going to happen to him, essentially, we know a little bit about what his future is going to entail, is quite fascinating. The fact that he has this, gang member in front of him, yet again, from an incident in the future, also indicates there is some kind of history and there's something that does play out. The Korean kind of, mobster characters coming in, they wanted a stronger hold of the local community, and the fact the film focuses on the community aspect for a good portion of that early, half an hour of the film is very interesting. The fact you get to know these characters, the barbers, the barmen, the various kind of people that are basically just getting the rough end of the stick. They've lost World War II. You know, their economy is really poor. You're treating, you know, Japanese kind of people like scum, not paying for their tabs, you know, raping, murdering, beating, intimidating. You know, this idea of, you know, they lost the war, we're going to claim back, you know, what's rightfully ours, and we're going to take a bit of peace they took away from us, essentially. There's this kind of like real internal hate. And that's something that's explored also within Graveyard of Honor, which, you know, from a different kind of perspective, a different kind of viewpoint, trade a lot more effectively to the film's benefit and makes it for much more of an interesting kind of journey, especially within our kind of main protagonist's kind of, you know, restraint and kind of, you know, his viewpoint within the film being kind of surprisingly quite limited for the first portion. We know there's going to be a big story kind of play out with him, in the fact of the kind of the present day kind of moment in the start of the film, but the fact that he's just kind of not getting involved. He's a doctor, he's a local town doctor, you know, he doesn't want any kind of trouble, essentially. He's a soldier, he's killed, he's came back from the war, he's changed, he's a different person, but he wants to be better, essentially. He wants to go back to what he was doing. And you've got characters that are basically wanting him to take a side and want him to get involved in this kind of turf war that's happening between the market kind of local kind of community versus the Korean kind of gangsters. And, you know, there's very deliberate choices in its kind of, you know, technical aspects with it. As mentioned, the fact that he is so calm and so cool and so kind of collected, you know, you can tell there's a lot going on. You can tell he's thinking about wanting to act. He could act, he could make a move, he could do something, he could say something, but he is very sturdy throughout the entire film. But the fact he's being the fact that the Korean gangsters are trying to intimidate him and try to, you know, take his kind of office and try and take his land and, you know, hurt the people around him. It's very interesting to kind of see his resolve, essentially, and how his stance is, and even some of the other kind of Korean characters that we get to know in the film. You know, some are just kind of coming out of kind of Japanese prison. Even they have mutual respect for this person, and there is some sort of, you know, camaraderie and some sort of mutual respect that just play out within certain kind of key members of the film, which definitely plays into the kind of the future aspect as well, which I'll leave to the film. And being the fact that, you know, Kenji Fukusaka's wife is actually in this film, and the son also talks about this and does an extra for this on the Radiance release, I think is quite interesting as well alongside it. And the fact that he did 3 movies with the director, I think is quite wonderful. All the action scenes, from gunplay to knife fights to brawls, essentially, is all very steadily kind of presented and shown in a much clearer fashion compared to some of the other Japanese directors that I've seen. You know, this is less chaotic, or a lot more controlled within its kind of deliberate kind of framing. The ultimate themes and this idea of life kind of keeps on presenting, you know, interesting kind of coincidences and opportunities. It definitely leaves you very satisfied with the film's ultimate end message, and the way it wants to kind of leave the film, I think, is very brave. It feels very fresh for something quite traditional at the same time. I think this is a very welcome first introduction film for me, and I'm really looking forward to checking out his next 2 films, part of the Radiance releases, and hopefully a lot more of his films down the line. The director has also done 2 other films released by Radiance called The Executioner and the brand new release of 18 Years in Prison, which I'll be doing reviews for very, very soon, guys. There's also a 4th edition coming out. I'm excited to check out, and they seem to be really deep diving into this director's filmography, which is really great for me, and hopefully the good times keep on coming for this director. So what are your thoughts and opinions on the actor and director? Please comment down below. What are your thoughts and opinions on the next 2 films, The Executioner and 18 Years in Prison? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Please comment down below. In the meantime, guys, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.